Raspberry Pi Foundation. And I'm really excited to connect with you all today. First and foremost, just like thank you to Most, to Abigail, and to Ellie, and thank you to you all for spending your morning with me this morning. I'm really excited to connect with you. And also just want to acknowledge like the rescheduling. Really appreciate y'all's flexibility in doing that. And hopefully I think it looks like we were able to get more folks to join today in the last registration. So really excited to have you all here. So in today's session, we're going to be doing some coding with Scratch, a block-based programming language, using one of our projects from the Raspberry Pi Foundation project library. And this is going to be, fingers crossed, this first session of 2. We're working with Abigail and Ellie to schedule another one. But I'd love to know how many folks are familiar with the Raspberry Pi Foundation or the Raspberry Pi computer. If you want, you can I think like if you want to put in the chat or just turn on your audio, would love to hear. And if you don't know, that's great. My mother had no idea what this was when I joined. She thought I was like going to work at a bakery. Yeah, let me see in the chat if any folks, or I think I'm being highlighted, so now I can't see everyone, but I want to figure out how to change my view so I can, because I want to see. Okay, but yeah, does anyone? Oh, okay. Certified educator. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, hi, Mark. Oh, that's really cool. I'll have to tell Matt. Well, that's great. I know of Raspberry Pis, but no idea how to build or use them. Okay. All right. Limited experience. Totally fine. Okay, cool. Just to give clarity on like what Mark had mentioned in the chat. Well, Gary's got some experience with Raspberry Pi and Scratch. Cool. And those of you who don't, no worries, you're my favorite. I love introducing folks to Raspberry Pi and Scratch. That is like my passion is beginner learners. And it sounds like we've got some expertise in here, so we'll be able to work together. I just want to acknowledge what Mark had mentioned. We have a program called Pi Academy, which has been paused because of COVID. It was an in-person free professional development for educators to come and learn about coding with the Raspberry Pi. So it's so cool to have a certified educator in here. A little intimidating, but it'll be fine. We'll be okay. All right, cool. Oh, there's a dog too. I see that dog, Corey. My dog's asleep. I had to run her before this so she would chill, but very cute. Bring all your animals, folks. This is everyone's welcome. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen so you can get an idea of what we're going to be doing today. All right. And appreciate your patience, as I'm familiar with Zoom, but I don't use it all the time. So I might be a little bit slower than most. I'll move you all over here on this screen so I can see everybody, and then have the chat over here. Okay, great. All right. So can everyone see my screen? You should be able to see something that says agenda. Can I just see maybe a nod from Alex or Abigail? Okay, cool. Yes. Great. Thank you, Christina, Alex. Oh yeah. I
can check the chat for you so you don't have to go
Perfect. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Alex is my colleague. I'm gonna let you all talk to him in a couple minutes. He's gonna tell you about some cool stuff. So today we're going to do an introduction to the Raspberry Pi and the Raspberry Pi Foundation. We're going to talk about community partnerships. That's been a big part of the work that we've been doing over the last year. And Alex Moore, my colleague, is going to share more about that. And we're going to do a coding activity. We're going to code with Scratch. We're going to talk about next steps and where you can go to next with the Raspberry Pi Foundation. So the mission of the Raspberry Pi Foundation is to put the power of computing and digital making into the hands of people all over the world. That's a big mission, right? And one way that we meet that mission is by having an affordable device, an affordable computer. This is the Raspberry Pi. Oh my gosh, I feel like an influencer. Alex has one up too. And this is a small credit card size $35 computer. And this is really such a really cool and really fun tool because it is $35, so it's cheap, right? And I'm not going to try and sell you this, but I just want you to know how it's led to the work we're able to do now. The sales of this computer go towards the work that Alex and I do, goes towards making our resources free, goes toward making the resources that I'll show you today free for you all to use and access whenever you want. And there's 2 of these actually on the International Space Station, which is pretty cool. These are used by hobbyists, educators, scientists, and it was created by a team in Cambridge, England, with the goal of helping folks to connect more with computer science. They saw that they had computer science students coming in with really limited knowledge of how computers worked. So they wanted to create the Raspberry Pi, which is its 10th year birthday is today, or not today, I'm sorry, this year. And they wanted to create the Raspberry Pi as a tool for folks to really engage with, like, how does a computer work? How does this box work? Let's actually look inside and see it. So a Raspberry Pi computer, I know that Ellie and Abigail are working on like what session 2 will look like, but what we wanted for session 1 was just to start off with what is the Raspberry Pi Foundation, what is the Raspberry Pi, and have you all do some coding that you can do on the devices you have today, and think about how you could do coding on these in the future. So let me move to the next slide. So I mentioned that hardware is one part of the way we meet that mission. Another way is through classroom education, out of classroom learning time, as well as research. So we've partnered with folks around the country in the USA and done a lot of partnerships in the UK. As I mentioned, the Raspberry Pi Foundation is a nonprofit based in the UK, and have done trainings, developed curriculum to support educators in bringing computer science experiences to youth. We also have our community partnerships as well as our coding club programs, which are part of the programs that I run. Again, free resources and free programs to help folks get coding clubs started in their communities. And then we do a ton of research with organizations around the world and how our materials, our curriculum, thinking about pedagogy, how can we really make computer science accessible to folks? So I'm going to have Alex jump in now and talk about community partnerships.
Thank you, Christina. Hello, everyone. Alex Mora again, the Community Partnerships Manager here at the Raspberry Pi Foundation, excuse me. As Christina mentioned, like our mission is really just to get the power of computing and digital making into the hands of young people all over the world. You're going to hear us say that a lot because we believe in it. We do that in many different ways. Christina mentioned coding clubs, which is this kind of an off-the-shelf program that you can pick up and run yourself and it's and learn through it, and we can support you as well. And we also wanted to make sure for those communities that maybe need a little bit more equitable access or more support to start some sort of coding or digital making program, that we create this community partnership with you all that's more tailored to you. And I'll give some examples because community partnership is so flexible when we can do. We can just kind of make up stuff, but I'll give you a few examples. So last year in October through November, we partnered with the University of California, Irvine, and a small charter school in Southern California called El Sol. And this small charter school is dual immersion. So the majority of the population speaks both English and Spanish, and they actually teach a lot of classes in Spanish for their students. They realized that a lot of the students and the parents really wanted to get some sort of coding program, but to make it more equitable, they wanted to do it in Spanish, right? They wanted that access to be for both the parents and these students who are coming from lots of countries from Latin America to learn how to code in Spanish. So UCI, El Sol, and us triaged to create this 6-week or 4-week program teaching young people how to code in Spanish, specifically using Raspberry Pi hardware. And we actually had the end goal of the project was to have something that was really culturally relevant to these communities. So I actually have this attachment called the Sense Hat that just kind of goes on the Pi. And these are all a bunch of little lights, these little white blocks. We have an activity in our project site that we can leave to you. We can send a link or share. I'll share it here in the chat, where these little LEDs, we light them up to make like an emoji, right? So we can have smiley faces and whatnot. But we thought, how UCI actually came up with this great idea of like, how can we make this more relevant to this community? And we actually had them light up the LEDs to show off the color of their national flag of their country of origin. So we had flags of Mexico, El Salvador, Honduras, right? So it was really just tailored to that community. So that's an example of what we've done in the past. Something that we're also working on is that we have this network of community organizations across the US and we're gonna start a 6-week intro to Python coding program. So that one is not Raspberry Pi hardware focused. None of our programs have to be, right? It's really what the need of the organization and their community is. So we identified that it'd just be great to introduce young people to coding, period. It doesn't, regardless of hardware, you can use a Mac, you can use a Chromebook. I want to say, but I'm not too confident, that you might be able to use an iPad or something similar as well to do this 6-week Python program. And it's going to start from very intro to Python, learning like the ins and outs of it, the very basic stuff to it, to by the end of week 6, these participants, these young people, are going to learn how to create, I want to say 2 to 3 different games using Python, basic games. We're not talking about Call of Duty. We're talking about like some sort of target practice kind of game. So that's really just what a community partnership is, right? We want to tailor it to these organizations and the communities that they serve, to have some more equitable access to coding programs, because we understand that sometimes off-the-shelf programs don't work for people. Although ours are like, I would say, are amazing. I'm going through the projects myself to kind of learn the content. Or sometimes some people just want a little bit more support or tweak a few things. And I know I threw a lot of info down there. So if you want to, I don't know if we can put the questions to chat, Christina, and then I can answer them there. Would that work best? Okay, that was a thumbs up.
Yeah, I mean, or we can take a moment, like if anyone has any questions they want to put out there, give you a couple minutes while I get our coding activity set up. And I think, as Alex mentioned, he talked about 2 great examples, one with the Raspberry Pi, and one that's just focused on just bringing like coding into like your spaces. So, I mean, like, for example, here we have like the first pictures, like we have one of our colleagues, Kevin, he's doing a coding activity with Girls Inc., who we've had a partnership with before. And then on the other side, we have my colleague, our former colleague at the top, Courtney, who's doing a coding activity that's with Raspberry Pis. And you'll see the folks on the left have just like normal laptops, and the folks on the right have Raspberry Pis. The bottom there is one of my favorite photos of a young girl who did a coding activity. It was her first time coding, and I was able to capture just that moment when it was like, it works. And I'm hoping that today some of you are going to have those same looks on your faces when you get your coding projects to work. So I don't see any questions in the chat, so let's jump right into some coding. So today we're going to be coding with Scratch. We decided this was a good project to start with, just because this was something you can take back to your sites and do with kids with whatever devices that you have. Scratch works on Chromebooks, it works on laptops, it also works on iPads or tablets. And if you haven't used Scratch before, that's great, totally fine. We'll do a quick introduction to Scratch and jump in. And what we'll be doing is we're going to be adding sprites in the backdrop, using look and sound code blocks, then using the paint editor to change a costume, and then practice sequencing. If you don't know what any of that means, no worries, you're gonna know what it means by the end. But I wanted to share out that vocabulary that we'll be using, and also kind of simulate what you might talk with the kids in your coding spaces about. So first we're gonna do is we're gonna go to Scratch. So let's go ahead and open up another tab or like window. You might want to like split, like move me to one side and then open up another window with Scratch in it. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. So when you go to scratch.mit.edu, you'll open up on their page, and at the top, you're actually going to see create. I already clicked on it. You'll see create at the top left. Go ahead and click on that, and then you should see this screen. So once you go to scratch.mit.edu, go ahead and click create at the top. You might also see a teal like tutorial. You can go ahead and exit out of that. I am your tutorial for today. Right. Okay. So I'm going to jump in. At any point though, please, like, you can, I think you can like raise your hand in this. You can just say, hold up, Christina. Let me know. As I imagine a lot of you all know, like just with how like remote working spaces, it's just a different type of presentation, right? So I can't necessarily see your faces. So please let me know if you want me to pause or stop or go over something again. So let's start with just a review of Scratch. And for those of you who know Scratch, feel free to jump in and share any of your like favorite tips and tricks. So in Scratch, it's a block-based programming language. So you have a written language. Alex had talked about Python, and you may like, you'll see those lines of code, right? Python, JavaScript. We're going to be using a block-based programming language, which is great for kids and adults. It's a drag and drop. So we have our blocks here on the left organized by colors and categories. So we have motion, looks, sound. If you remember, I mentioned we'll be using looks and I think motion today. So those are the blocks we're going to be going to. When you select a block, you'll drag it into the coding area. So let's do, I'm going to drag this block here. And then you have sprites. So we already have a sprite. This is Scratch the cat, who is like the mascot for the Scratch program. And let me go ahead. I'm going to get Scratch the cat to say something. So we need an events block. We're going to kick off our program. And feel free to be doing the same thing. So I'm going to drag this over. So when the green flag is clicked, so there's my green flag, Scratch the cat should say hello. Right? There's always the pressure of whether or not that's going to work. It worked. We just wrote a program. Super simple right there. It's the first one you could show your kiddos. And for some of you, if it's your first time coding, you just did it. I'm really happy for you. Now we have sprites. These are our characters. So I mentioned we're going to be doing space talk. So we're going to have characters who are in space. And I'll show you how to add those into your from the library into our coding space right here. Well, this is our coding space. This is our stage, like a performance where all the activity happens. We'll also be able to add backdrop. So you see here in the bottom right, we've got a stage and then backdrop. So right now it's white. We'll be able to add in some backdrops from the library. And I think those are kind of like the main things. If you want, I'll give you a minute, just like click through, like, what's great is you can't break it. Like just exit out the tab. We can open up a new one if something happens. But you can see a lot. There's so many blocks, and I've just seen things as simple as kids creating pages that are stories that they created about characters in their lives, or creating Scratch projects that celebrate like their community and their culture, or have also created like really like in-depth games, which is pretty incredible. And what we're going to be doing today is Scratch is like one of like, Scratch is also a free program. Like as you see, I was able to like jump in, just work on it. If you want to like join Scratch, or if you have an account and want to sign in and save your project, you can do that, but it's not required. But that is something you would need to do, or kids would need to do to save their project. All right. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to actually be doing a project in the Raspberry Pi Foundation project library. So as I mentioned, like we've got the hardware, but we also just want to make resources for folks to be able to code. So this is one of our projects. So I'll share this link with you specifically in a second, but I just want to show it to you. And I'll be walking you through this project. And so we are going to be creating a space scene where characters that emote to share thoughts or feelings. So what I love about our projects is they're all organized pretty similarly. We've got our title at the top. We know what language we're doing. You can also print them. I've seen sites and organizations where they've printed and made like binders of different projects that they really like. Then our contents here shows us the steps. So we're going to create our scene. We're going to pull in a sprite named Pico and have Pico say hello. You all already know how to do that. Then we're going to have Pico play a sound. We're going to switch a costume. You're going to know how to do all this by the end. Then let me go ahead and close this. Let me go ahead and show you what our project looks like. I like this, something we started adding in. We got response from the community that having a preview of the project was really helpful for folks and for kids. So this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be able to create this so that when we click on a character, they'll do something. So this one changes colors, and it seems pretty simple. So let's do some coding, but it may not be, and that's okay. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our scene. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to switch back to my Scratch page, but I'm going to be walking you through these steps. So to do that, first I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this code that we just had, move it over here. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of Scratch the Cat. I can do that by clicking on the X here. So I do that, there's nothing here, and that's completely okay because we are going to create our scene for our Space Talk project. So let's go ahead, we're going to choose a backdrop. So here I mentioned the bottom right, we're going to click on that icon. And I'm going to choose a backdrop. I'm going to go to the first one, which is like the magnifying glass for like search. We're going to go into a library. And I'm going to go ahead and type in space. You see there's lots of options, actually even more than there were last time I did this one. So that's great. Feel free to pick any one you want. I always encourage adults to do that. So I also encourage you to bring that choice to your coding spaces with kids so they really can develop and create a project that excites them and allows them to express themselves. I'm a Nebula person, so I'm going to go with a Nebula actually. All right, as you see, all right, got my backdrop. Awesome. I'll give you a couple seconds to choose. I know it's really exciting. And remember, if you haven't already, to I mean, you could keep Scratch the Cat if you want a cat in space. But there are also some really cool other sprites. And sprite is just the name of the characters. So similarly to where the icon was for choose a backdrop, right next to it is a cat icon. That's the sprite icon. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that, then click on the magnifying glass. And I'm going to find us some space characters. So a word that'll help us search through is fantasy. That'll give us a couple of cool characters to choose from. And the first one I'm going to choose, because I'm just following the steps on the project, I'm going to choose Pico. So I'm going to click on that one. But you see, we've got Giga, we've got Gobo. Gobo is actually my personal favorite sprite. Guys, there's so many now. A mermaid, a fairy, a bat. Oh, I love it. Okay, Pico. All right, so we've got Pico here. There's Pico. And then what we're going to do for the first thing is we're going to get Pico just to say hello. So you may already actually know how to do that if you want to go ahead and jump in. Remember, this is thinking about if you're trying to think, and what's neat, and I love how these are categorized, is you have an idea for a project where a kid comes to you and says like, hey, like Mr. Mora, how could I do this? You may not know how. Like kids going to be all the time like, I don't know, but let's actually problem solve this together. You want to get it to say something. Okay. That would be something we would see. So it might be under looks. Okay. All right. Yeah. We can get it to say hello. I'm going to go ahead and pull in that block over there. And for a coding program to work, we need an event. We need something to kickstart it. For like your phones, it's pressing like the app, it's pressing the power button. So here, what I'm going to do, we had done when the flag is clicked. I actually want to use the third from the top. I want to use when the sprite is clicked. We're going to have it say hello for this one. I like to switch it up. All right, so now you'll notice the difference. When I click the flag, nothing happens. But when I click the sprite, Pico, it says hello. So that is our first sprite that we added in. And what I love about this project, it's a great introduction to Scratch. We're going through, we're picking a backdrop, we're picking a sprite, we're starting with some basic, just simple, like 2 blocks of code. You'll see projects, some pretty incredible projects that have like hundreds of blocks of code. I encourage you just to explore, like join Scratch, explore the library and the community projects that are in there. There's some pretty amazing projects. All right. Also, you may notice like you can with Scratch blocks, there's editable blocks. So here I can change this to hola and then change it to 5 seconds. And so you can change that to something. This also will bring into a point where to talk with kids about what's appropriate to add to your sprites. That's always a fun conversation. So, but yes, you can change it. So that also really gets fun. And it's just always really neat to see that like just with this simple of a project, how many different projects you're going to get from kids just because of the choices that are available in Scratch. All right. This is just a reminder to save it if you want to save it. If not, we're going to keep going. We're also going to add in a sound. So what's neat about Scratch, we can add in sounds as well. You'll see here at the top, we've got code, costumes and sound, these 3 tabs you'll see at the top left. Costumes we're not going to touch just yet. We're going to go ahead and add in a sound. So there is also a sound library, which you'll see here at the bottom that you can pick from, similar to how we chose our backdrop and how we chose our sprite. We can go in and we can find, and there's space sounds. So we can pick any one of these sounds, excuse me. And once you've picked one, I think I'm going to pick Alien Creek 1. Oh yeah. I don't know if you all can hear it. You might not be able to hear it directly. Yeah, I think I see Alex shaking his head. So feel free to explore them on your end. I'm going to go ahead and add in a sound. I'll just show you how you can add sounds in. So when we go back to our code, and it was important, you'll see here that sound wasn't in here yet. I added it in via the library. So now I have that as a sound option. So I go back to code. I'll give you a second to guess where this block might be in our block library. We'll go ahead to sound. And then because that was most recent sound that I had picked, it automatically puts it in there. So I'm going to click play sound here. And you'll see now I have a choice because there's 2 sounds in my library that I've added. I'm going to add an Alien Creek. And now when I click on Pico, Pico makes a sound and says hello. Well, it actually makes a sound after 5 seconds. And that's where sequencing comes in, folks. The order of your blocks really does make a difference. So in this case, I actually want the sound to happen first. So I'm going to move the sound here because you couldn't hear it on your end. But what happened was Pico said hola for 5 seconds. So I had to wait 5 seconds before I actually heard the Alien Creek sound. So I've moved my sound above it. So that's the first thing I hear. And then his speech bubble pops up. Any questions or thoughts around Pico? If not, we're going to move to our next sprite. So we are going to add in another sprite. Feel free to follow along. If not, or if you already know how to add in a sprite, go ahead and do so. So I'm going to go to choose a sprite, a magnifying glass. So I'm in the library. And then I had typed in fantasy. You'll also see there's categories here at the top. Again, feel free to choose, like, you don't have to do an alien. It might be easier just to like follow along with how I'm doing it. But there are plenty of sprites. Kids might decide they want to have a mermaid, a unicorn, and a wizard toad in space. So next one we're going to pick, let me check the project guide. Oh, we're going to add in Nano. There's Nano. Okay, cool. I'm going to move Nano over here. I'm going to give our sprites a little bit of space. Okay. So what you'll see here now is that we have 2 sprites here, and you'll see my code is gone. I want to address this because this happens all the time. And folks are like, oh, the code's gone. Christina, Miss Christina, the code is gone. Your code is not gone. The code that we just did was associated with Pico. So if I click back on Pico, I make sure Pico is highlighted. We see the code there that we coded for that sprite. But now I'm going to be coding for Nano. And so before we had coded, we had added a sound and we had added a speech bubble. For Nano, we're actually going to change Nano's costume. And what a costume is for a sprite is how they look. So I had mentioned that was one of the things we're going to use like paint to change it. So what we're going to do is we are going to first get Nano to say thanks when the sprite is clicked. So I'm going to go to events. What I like to do when I have an idea as well is I like to just pull all the code in before I add it together. So, and then I'm going to have Nano say thanks. And then I'm going to switch Nano's costume. And if you want to check what Nano's costumes look like, we can go to the second tab here at the top. And for a lot of Scratch sprites that are already in Scratch, they already have a couple of costumes that you can pick and choose from. So we've got Nano A, Nano B, Nano C, and Nano D. I'm going to stick with Nano A, B, and C for obvious reasons. So we're going to say hello, and we're going to switch the costume. So I really liked Nano B. Yeah, Nano B and Nano A. I like those because it actually is going to give a motion by switching between the two that Nano is speaking by having a mouth open and then Nano A having a mouth closed. So I'm going to go ahead to switch costume. And I'm actually going to need 2 of these because I want to start with Nano B. Then I want Nano B to be the first costume because I want the sprite to open their mouth, say hello, and then be Nano A. Let's see if this worked. It did. Okay, great. So our first sprite, we added a speech bubble and added a sound. This sprite, we are adding a speech bubble and also changing their looks to simulate like talking and motion, which is really neat. Any questions? Or does anyone want to share their screen? You don't have to, but you would bring so much joy to my life if you wanted to share your project. That option is available. So let us know. And as well as in terms of if you needed support like debugging, let us know. Like if for some reason something isn't working, that's okay. This happens all the time. Like it may just be like, you may be just like missing something and we can help you out. And that's something that I've done with folks when we have, oh, it says screen sharing is unavailable. So I think that would be something, yeah, we'd have to ask Abigail. So if you wanted, to share your screen, let us know. So Tori, let us know if you want to share it. And then Abigail can give you access to do so. And that's definitely a tool that like I've had to use a lot when doing virtual like trainings like this, but also when we've done like virtual coding activities with kids, encouraging kids to share their screens to debug together, as well as just to show the projects that they've made, to really highlight that, because it simulates that similar experience of when we've been in person and you can go around and see what's on everyone's computer. All right. Oh, yay, Tori. Oh, it disappeared. Oh, okay, it's back. Oh, great. So you're doing like a forest scene. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so you have a bear, owl, and a rabbit. When the sprite is clicked, oh, that's really cute. Do you have any code yet for the rabbit? Play sound crickets. Nice. Oh, you've created like a little character scene. That's really cute, Tori. Thank you for sharing. Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you. I really meant that when it said it would bring joy to see that. Thank you so much. All right, I think I might have to go back to sharing mine.
Christina, I'll share mine.
Oh yes, Ellie, please. Oh yes.
Let me find it here. Let me show all windows. Too many windows open.
Yeah, make sure you show the one you want to show us.
I know. I'm trying to find it. Hold on. Let me real quick do something. It's because it is kind of funny. Oh, I see. But let me I see my problem here. All right. Now I should be able to share. So I have, this is my dog, Copper. And
oh, amazing.
and then, yeah, you click on and she's
I love this. I love that. I love like everyone just like being creative and like choosing like characters that just, and this is something that just even it happening with us, you'll see this with your kids. And I really encourage, and as you all know, just like with like out of school time, just having those spaces that are really about like play and creativity. And so it's really neat to see you all doing that. It's awesome. I love it. So thank you both for sharing. So let me figure out how to share my screen again. Wait, am I still sharing by chance or no? No, I don't think I am.
You are not sharing right now.
Okay, cool. Let me go back to here. Yep. All right. All right, so we are back in space on mine with Pico and Nano. And you mentioned Ellie, your dog. What's a really fun thing that you can do is you can create your own sprites or add in your own backdrops. So I have very proudly made a scratch project that also involved a picture of my dog, like an actual picture of her. And you can do that by like uploading like a sprite. You can upload a picture of something. So that's really fun to see. I've seen Scratch used in programs where maybe kids are making family portraits or like a family tree, but they make it an interactive version. Or I've seen folks use it where one group that I worked with, we developed a project that was a magazine about artists that the kids had been engaging with. So they made the art pieces interactive. So if you clicked on an art piece, then the talking bubble actually had information about the art. And it would tell you who it was made by and what year it was from. So that was really cool to see. And those were just like uploaded sprites that they had added. So now that we figure out costumes, actually what's neat about this as well, let me see. Ooh. Oh, that's right. Okay. So for this one, what we're going to do, we have Nano right now saying hello. I'm going to change this to thanks. Because what we're going to do is we're going to change Nano's costume as well. I'm going to show you how to do that by actually having Nano sign thank you in ASL, an American Sign Language. This actually might also be British Sign Language because this was made in the UK, but I think it's the same thing. It's the same sign. So we're going to have Nano switch costumes. But we need to edit a costume to do that. So we're going to go into the costume tab and we're going to click on Nano B. And what we're going to do is in the sprites, a lot of sprites are created sort of like in, I guess the best word is like describing pieces. So we're going to go ahead and click on Nano's left arm and I'm actually going to delete it. But that's okay because we're going to add in a new one. So I'm going to go to Nano C and I'm going to click on Nano's left arm and Nano C and I'm going to copy that. You could do like Command C, which is what I'm doing on my computer. You can click copy at the top. So this is kind of like, this is like very similar to like Paint, which I used a lot as a kid. Some of you might have used as well. So I'm going to click copy. I'm going to go back to Nano B. And I'm going to click paste. And now we're going to be able to simulate that motion, that movement of both like saying thank you and using ASL to sign thank you. So let's go ahead. Let me click on thanks. Yay. Love that. All right. Okay, I just wanted to check the chat. Okay, now we're going to add in one more sprite. So we've learned how to add in a sprite. We've learned how to make them, how to have them talk. We've learned how to change their costume. So this sprite, we're also going to have them speak, but we're going to have a think bubble, speak in their mind, think bubble instead. And we're going to change the color of their costume. That's our goal there. So the goal here to try, if you want to like not look at my screen and just try it on your own, add in a new sprite. In the project, it's the Giga sprite, or feel free to pick a sprite that you want and change the color of your sprite. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. If you want to follow along with me, I'm going to go to fantasy. All right, we click on Giga. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. And I'm going to have this one be when this sprite is clicked. Set the color effect. So remember, we're thinking, okay, the color changing, that's how the sprite looks. So I'm going to go and see what effects are available here. And you'll see changing size, changing color. So I'm going to change, actually what I want to do, I want to set color. And then I'm going to have Giga think. So I'm going to go to looks as well. I'm going to have Giga think. And then we haven't used a block like this yet, but there are a lot of blocks that may clear the effects that you've added in. So I'm going to clear the graphic effects that I'm going to add in with the color. So with the setting color effect, you can put in a number from 0 to 200 to change like to any color that you want. So I'm just going to start with 10 and see what happens. I'm going to add in think, excuse me. And then I'm going to add in clear graphics. And that sequencing comes in here, right? Because we need to be thinking about the order. And that's why I love this project, is because having clear graphics first isn't going to help us, or it's not going to do anything until when the sprite is clicked. So having the order of your blocks is really helpful, is really important. And that's similar like with lines of code. All right. So we just got Giga to say something, and then our graphics cleared. Let's see, I'm going to keep adding in. Ooh, that's 500. I don't think that can work. 50. All right. Why do I have a color issue? Oh, I think I need time. Oh, yep, that's why. So I don't have any time between these. I just have think, set color, clear graphics. And it's happening so fast that I'm not even seeing it. So what I actually need to do is you could do one or two things. And this is actually my issue is my bug that I have right now is a good example of how you can have two options for how to actually code this. So I want to see the color change, and I also want I want to see the color change. So I need time to happen. So I can either have a block. I have this block that says think for 2 seconds, or there's a really great block called control. And you can use a wait block. So I could do either one, where if I want something to happen, I want to wait. I'm going to go ahead and use the think one because it's, so that'll be the easiest for me. But the wait block is also a really great one to have in your tools box. Okay, so now this should work. Yes, okay, cool. For 2 seconds, and then it goes back. So there we go. All right. So y'all, you just coded 3 sprites. You got them to talk. You got them to change colors. You got one of them to sign ASL. You got like, that's pretty awesome. Like, and this project, as you all saw already from what Ellie and Tori were able to do, it's a really great project that just like opens up a lot of possibilities for how kids can engage with Scratch and really like be creative and express themselves with just such a simple start to Scratch. So I'd love to open it up. Either if folks want to share, folks have questions or thoughts on like this project. And I mean, let's start with questions first. Like, if you have any specific questions of like how to introduce this project, how to use Scratch at your site, would love to hear. Or also know if anyone has used Scratch already, like at your, like with kids.
So Christine, this is Dwayne.
Hi, Dwayne.
So we do use Scratch in 4-H a lot with the CS First coding program.
Okay, cool.
And in fact, you know, I just had one very similar to this a couple nights ago with a group of kids, and it really is amazing the number of different projects that can come out from one starter. So
yeah, that's my favorite thing about this and these projects. And honestly, I think just like the I think digital making, honestly, like just the ability, like I know when I was in school, it was, if I did a project and at the end, it didn't look like the teachers, there was a sense of failure that I felt. And so I feel like having come into Raspberry Pi and the digital making space, getting to like work in a space where like you want to have so many different projects at the end, like there is that flexibility and that space there. It's really awesome. So that's really cool to hear. Thank you for sharing, Dwayne. Any other folks want to add or share? Okay.
I'm just watching and learning.
Oh, cool. Corey, that makes me so happy. I'm so happy to hear that. I mean, that is exactly what I want to be happening. So
I do have
yeah.
one question. Is it
course.
possible I could go back and actually look at this recording when it's all said and done?
I believe so. Yeah. Abigail is recording it. I believe, Abigail, could you add like with the intention of sharing it with you all?
Okay.
Yeah, so we are
I like to do
recording.
the exercise. I like to continue to do the exercise after the meeting over with.
Okay, yes, I'm the same. I'm like, I need processing time. Like I leave a space and like need time to practice. So completely understand. Yep. Yeah. Thank you for asking. All right, cool. All right. So next what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you all. I'm going to move you over there. Ooh, let me share again. Okay. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, like I was moving through, like, while I'd like to make you believe I had all of that memorized, I do not. I was moving through a project. And so I was moving through the Space Talk project. And so we have over 200 of these projects. These are all free for folks to use and to access. So I'm going to switch tabs to projects.raspberrypi.org. Actually, let me go to, yeah. I'm gonna go to that one. There we go. So projects.raspberrypi.org is our page for the project library. And you can go in here and you can find projects that are Scratch projects. So we can go in and you can sort projects by level, by topic, also by hardware. So for those of you, when you sign up for the next session for Raspberry Pis, there are also Raspberry Pi projects. And that next session, we'll talk more about like specifically how you can like be using any of these projects with Raspberry Pi and specifically like hardware. What's also great is on a Raspberry Pi, there is Scratch. Thank you, Ellie, for sharing the link. I appreciate that. Gosh, we got a great team here. So we can sort by Scratch projects. Something I also want to show, there we go, yeah. So I think just mine's a little bit smaller, so it doesn't show at the top, but yeah, there we go. So usually at the top, you'll see projects, Code Club, Coder Dojo, the programs I had mentioned, as well as all new paths. These are really amazing, and this is where I actually pulled Space Talk from, because these pathways are very consciously designed to help move kids and adults through a specific programming language. So we did Introduction to Scratch and started with Space Talk. And so we got introduced to getting sprites, getting like backdrops. Then the next project is about motion. Then we are creating a game, creating an app. And so what I love about the Introduction to Scratch pathway is it really builds on. So if you're thinking, okay, cool, Christina, this is great, but where do I go next? Here is a pathway. You can start with the Space Talk project with your kids. You can jump into Catch, then do Catch the Bus, then do Find the Bug. If you have a kid who's like, I've done Scratch before, you could have, there's a more advanced Scratch level. Actually, there's 3 of them now. That's amazing. As well as Introduction to Python, Introduction to Unity. So 3D like objects, like creating like a video game. And then there's a physical computing with Scratch and Raspberry Pi. And that is something that folks, I had mentioned like our Pi Academy program, that was something we had done with folks where you're using Scratch to like light up an LED, which is just so much fun. So I wanted to show these to you. Thank you, Ellie, for sharing this in the sharing the link. And before we wrap up, are there any questions about Scratch, that specific project? And please, was anyone like, or any of you not able to get your project to work? I would hate if you leave here not having been able to code something. I would like, and if you don't feel comfortable saying it here, like feel free to send me an email. I'll have my email on the last slide and happy to answer any questions. I want to make sure that you were able to code at least one cute sprite in space. Okay, so I had mentioned the projects. So I'm going to mention a couple of resources I wanted to share with you all. The projects page, which now you all have, and that one, that is free, that is open, jump on it, have fun with it, use those projects. We would love to get feedback from you. We'd love to hear how you use them. We also have online courses. So if you're feeling really inspired and excited, if you go to rpf.io/train online, these are all free online courses. Some examples are just like, if you wanted to move from Scratch to a Python programming language, these are educator focused courses on how to do that. If you're thinking about building a makerspace, if programming, like if you both want to introduce Python to your kiddos, or you're personally thinking about Python and like wanting to get started with like a written coding language, I cannot celebrate enough the Programming 101 course. That course was incredible and I absolutely loved it. And there's like, I think 50 courses on there now. So feel free to check those out. Those are free. You have to create an account with FutureLearn, and the only cost associated is if you wanted to have a certificate. Other than that, it's free. So yeah, you don't have to have a certificate. So like, that's just, there would be a cost there if that was something you wanted. Another resource I wanted to mention was Code Club. This is specifically the program I work on. And this is helping folks start code clubs in their communities. So as Alex had mentioned, we have guidance and support and projects. My colleague, Kevin, and I, we send out resources every month to folks So if you're like, yeah, because I want to start a code club, but I don't even know where to pick from the library, we send out projects to you. So this week we sent out project ideas for Black History Month. We're currently working on our project ideas for next week with Women's History Month. So we look at like what's happening, what are current events that you may be celebrating in your classrooms, in your spaces, and how can we take a project and be like, hey, how can you create a magazine celebrating some of like figures in history? So that's what we'll send out to folks who sign up with Code Club and are there to help. Thank you for sharing those links as well. I think, yeah, any questions? Okay. So if there aren't any questions, we'll wrap up so I can then pass it back to Ellie and Abigail. But as Alex had mentioned earlier, a big part of the work that we're doing is also community partnerships. So if you're excited to like take these coding projects and just jump right in, great. Please stay in touch. I'd love to hear how they're going, would love to support. If you're ready to start a code club, jump right in. If you're thinking, hey, we need something else, we need like something additional, but we're not sure what that is, or we'd love to like collaborate more, like just have a deeper partnership with you, please reach out to Alex. He's done an incredible job of connecting with organizations around the country and designing partnerships that'll help fit and support their communities. So we'd love to hear from you and we'd love to partner with you. And I mean it when we say you, you on the ground working with kids, those are the partners that we're looking for. So please reach out. We'd love to connect. Those are our email addresses. Alex, is there anything you want to say before we pass it back to Ellie and Abigail?
Nothing that you didn't say other than just want to reiterate that sometimes there's organizations that ask us, well, what's the catch? What's the cost, right? Like it's really nothing. It's free. That's the point of why we're here. That's the point of why we sell the mini computer, so that everything that Christine and I do and all our colleagues here in the UK do are at no cost to you.
Yeah, thank you for re-emphasizing that.
Yeah.
It's something that I think is just one of the greatest parts about my job, having formerly taught and like worked in education. Things cost a lot of money and like it's really incredible to be able to do something and to be able to help folks out and give you all like free training and resources. So thank you all so much for joining and engaging with us today. Really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing as well. Appreciate engaging with you all. Back to you, Ellie and Abigail.
There was a question in the chat.
There was a question?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is from Rebecca. This was great. What kind of Raspberry Pi do you recommend again?
Yeah. So that's a big question, Rebecca. Ultimately, like there's a lot of different types of Raspberry Pis. The most recent one, there's two. I'm sorry, there's like sirens passing right now. There's the Raspberry Pi 4, and then gosh, I forgot the name of the one. Then we also have a Raspberry Pi that's actually embedded in a keyboard. And that's something to think about, right? In the last photo, you'll see that there's the Raspberry Pi. But you also want to be thinking about like the monitor. I want to be mindful of time. So Rebecca, if you email me, we can talk more about like, what are your needs? As well as thinking about like, what would be the best like Raspberry Pi like for you. So I want to be mindful of folks' time. So back to Ellie and Abigail.
I just want to thank Christina and Alex. Give them a little bit of love in the chat, or you can type ones if this was a great experience, or you can give them a little clap or a thumbs up with your reaction. We love having people share, especially free resources with us. I didn't know about the courses. I'm super excited about that, to promote those courses to our colleagues and maybe to take some myself. I'm also super excited to pass this back to Abby to talk about part 2 of this event and the other events we have coming up.
Hi guys, thank you guys for joining so much. We do have a part 2 for this event for students. In this part 2, you guys have an opportunity to actually sign up your students, and we will be sending you guys a couple of Raspberry Pis so that the students can play around with them. That should be coming in the next couple of weeks. Look out for our Instagram, our Twitter, and our newsletter. We will make an announcement when part 2 has a date. We do have another event coming up. It's the Women in Engineering event. That one is going to be in February 23rd. We're going to be showcasing a couple women engineers. And then we also have an associated bridge building challenge that your students can submit photos to for the chance to get an Amazon gift card. So that should be really fun. And Ellie's dropping the links for those in the chat right now. But thank you guys for so much for coming by. If there's any other questions for Christina or Alex, they did share their emails. But other than that, is there anything else?
We
Ellie?
have one other event coming up that's STEM related. On March 3rd, we're gonna host a information session with just a little half-hour Q&A and sharing with the Baltimore Gas and Electric. They have free STEM kits and materials around energy, and it's really cool stuff. So that will be March 3rd at noon. So keep an eye out for that as well. And, you know, just make sure that you, you know, if you're not already on, you're probably on our mailing list if you're here today, but if you're not, go to mostnetwork.org. Oops, oh, yeah, there it is. And make sure you subscribe. That's where we put everything, all the grants, all the events, all the trainings, all the resources, everything goes there. Yeah, we're so happy you all could be here today. Nice turnout. So fun that you could, you know, be with all of us and play around. I'm gonna bark my dog a few more times before I have some lunch.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. Really enjoyed connecting with you all today. And yeah, okay, great. Yeah, great to see all these links. So make sure, yeah, check out these links, folks. And yeah, excited to connect with you all again soon. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay, you too.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Ready to go for a walk?